For 2,000 years, the Vatican has been the keeper of Christianity's deepest archives, records that stretch from the days of Roman emperors to the birth of the modern world. Few have ever seen them. Scholars call it the Vatican Apostolic Archive, but most know it by its older, more dramatic name, the Secret Archives. The word secret never meant sinister. In Latin, secretum simply meant private. Yet over the centuries, that privacy became legend. Inside, row after row of parchment and papal decrees rest in temperature-controlled silence. Letters from kings and queens, the trial transcript of Galileo, maps of forgotten empires, every piece a fragment of civilization preserved by ink and devotion. Access is rare. Only a few hundred accredited historians have ever walked those narrow aisles, and only for specific documents under watchful eyes. No filming, no wandering, no secrets revealed. It is this combination of real restriction and human curiosity that gave rise to centuries of speculation. What else might be down there? Lost Gospels? Hidden histories? Evidence of miracles or of mistakes? No one can say for sure, and perhaps that's why the allure endures. In a world that lives by instant information, the Vatican remains a fortress of silence. The story of these archives is not about scandal, but about power. The power of knowledge, and the universal tension between what we preserve and what we choose to reveal. As myths grew, the mystery became larger than the truth itself. The result is one of history's most enduring fascinations, a vault of paper and faith that continues to guard the narrative of the Western world. This is the Vatican Secrets, the knowledge hidden beneath Rome, where faith meets mystery and where the greatest treasure might not be gold or relics, but understanding. Part 1. The birth of the Vatican. Every empire begins with a story, and the Vaticans began not with conquest, but with a tomb. According to tradition, the Apostle Peter, the fisherman whom Christ called the Rock, was executed in Nero's circus around AD 64. Christians buried him in a quiet necropolis outside the city walls, never imagining that centuries later his grave would stand beneath the largest church on earth. As persecution turned to acceptance, Rome's emperors changed. In 313, Constantine the Great legalized Christianity. Within decades, the faith that once hid in catacombs now built basilicas. Constantine ordered a grand shrine above Peter's resting place, marking the heart of what would become Vatican Hill. From that moment, faith and authority intertwined, spiritual power seated at the literal center of a former empire. Through the Middle Ages, the papacy became not just a spiritual guide, but a political force. Popes crowned kings, brokered treaties, and governed territories known as the Papal States. Rome's marble palaces echoed with diplomacy as much as prayer. To preserve its decisions, letters, and decrees, the Church began collecting records, a habit that, over time, grew into one of humanity's most extensive archives. By the 1400s, the Vatican's reach extended far beyond religion. Its scribes recorded scientific observations, navigational charts from explorers, and correspondence from every European court. The Vatican Library, officially founded in 1475 under Pope Sixtus IV, became a beacon of scholarship. Illuminated manuscripts from monasteries, ancient Greek and Arabic texts, and papal bulls all found shelter within its vaulted halls. The Renaissance transformed these collections from clerical necessity into cultural legacy. Artists such as Michelangelo and Raphael filled the Vatican's chambers with art that mirrored its ambition to represent both heaven and history. Yet as knowledge expanded, so did caution. The Church guarded what it gathered, aware that ideas could inspire or undermine faith. By the time the Papal States dissolved in 1870 and Vatican City was formally established in 1929, the institution had already survived emperors, revolutions, and reformations. Its archives had grown into a mirror of Western civilization, part museum, part memory, part mystery. The Vatican was no longer merely the seat of Catholicism. It was a living archive of humanity itself, a sovereign reminder that information is power, and power endures through preservation. In Part 2, the Vatican Archives, we descend beneath the marble into the silent corridors where centuries of letters, edicts, and secrets, public and private, sleep in the dark. Part 2. The Vatican Archives. Few places on earth hold a reputation like the Vatican Apostolic Archive. It sits beneath the Vatican Palace, tucked behind bronze doors and stone corridors, lined with Latin inscriptions. To most of the world, it is known by a more evocative name, the secret archives, a label that has fueled centuries of imagination. But the secrecy isn't born from darkness. In Latin, Archivum Secretum Vaticanum simply meant the private archive of the Pope. Still, the word secret captured public fascination. It suggested that inside those vaults lay not only the paperwork of popes, but the unwritten chapters of civilization. The repository of empires, the archives are vast, more than 85 kilometers of shelving, holding centuries of correspondence between the Vatican and nearly every kingdom, republic, and empire in recorded history. There are letters from Michelangelo requesting payment for his frescoes, dispatches from Napoleon, pleas from Henry VIII during his struggle for annulment, and the handwritten transcript from the trial of Galileo Galilei. Each document is a snapshot of faith colliding with power. Together they form a living record of humanity's pursuit of truth, shaped by politics, philosophy, and devotion. The rules of access entry into this world is possible, but not freely. Only credentialed researchers with advanced degrees in history or related fields may apply. Once approved, they're allowed into the consulta, the research hall where archivists deliver the requested materials, one box at a time. Photography is limited, and entire sections remain restricted for conservation or diplomatic reasons. That limited access, intended to protect fragile materials, only deepened the sense of mystery. Over time, the absence of information became a story of its own. Writers imagined hidden gospels, secret prophecies, even relics locked away to preserve doctrine. Hollywood adapted the myth into thrillers and novels, where clues to divine truth waited in candlelit basements beneath the Vatican OS marble floors. Preserving history. The reality, though less dramatic, is no less extraordinary. The Vatican's preservation methods are among the most advanced in the world. Constant climate control, digital scanning, and multilingual cataloging. Ancient ink is stabilized. Papyrus scrolls are reassembled fiber by fiber. The Vatican has slowly opened more of its holdings to scholars, including wartime archives from the 20th century. Still, some materials remain unseen, not necessarily for secrecy, but because time has yet to catch up with them. Millions of documents await translation, restoration, or classification, and as long as there are doors unopened, the imagination of the world will keep asking what lies behind them. The Vatican's archives stand as both sanctuary and symbol, proof that knowledge is powerful enough to be protected. To some, it's a monument to transparency, to others a fortress of silence. In Part 3, Hidden Knowledge and Lost History, we explore how these archives inspired legends, stories of forbidden books, forgotten discoveries, and humanity's endless desire to uncover what was meant to stay unseen. Part 3, Hidden Knowledge and Lost History. Every locked door invites a question. Every unlabeled box invites a story. The Vatican's archives are filled with both, and that emptiness between what is known and what is imagined is where legend thrives. The birth of the legend for centuries. The Church stood at the crossroads of faith and knowledge. Monasteries preserved the manuscripts that later rebuilt Europe's libraries. The Vatican, with its scholars and scribes, became a beacon of literacy in a world often ruled by sword and superstition. But when certain texts were declared heretical, or dangerous when thinkers challenged theology with mathematics or philosophy, the line between protection and suppression blurred. To historians, these decisions reflected the fears of their age, a desire to defend doctrine in unstable times. To storytellers, they looked like the fingerprints of censorship. The idea took root that somewhere beneath Rome lay the writings the world was not ready to see. Scrolls from Alexandria, missing gospels, prophecies sealed away. Each generation added its own layer to the myth. What we know exists inside the archives. Confirmed holdings include papal decrees, royal correspondence, and early maps of the New World. There are diplomatic notes from emperors, documents on church councils, and letters written in the hand of Michelangelo, Galileo, and Martin Luther. Historians who have studied there describe a labyrinth of vaults stretching through centuries, an almost geological layering of human thought. The real marvel is not what's hidden, but how much of civilization's paper memory survives there. The shadow of speculation, still imagination fills the void. Could the archives hold the lost books of the Bible, or documents that contradict accepted history? Scholars answer cautiously, Nothing suggests such materials exist, yet the Church's long tradition of confidentiality keeps the question alive. And perhaps that is the point. The mystique sustains interest in preservation. Without the legend, few outside academia would even know these archives exist. The human need for mystery. The deeper truth may not lie in any specific document, but in our relationship with secrecy itself. Every culture hides its sacred knowledge, whether to protect it or to preserve its power. The Vatican's vaults mirror humanity's instinct to guard the things we find most valuable: belief, history, and identity. The phrase hidden knowledge doesn't always mean deception. Sometimes it means reverence. Some truths are fragile, like the parchment they're written on. To preserve them is to respect their weight. In Part 4, The Power and the Politics, we leave the corridors of parchment for the halls of influence, tracing how the Vatican's knowledge shaped kings, guided nations, and influenced the balance between moral authority and worldly power. Part 4, The Power and the Politics. For 2,000 years, the Vatican has balanced on a razor's edge, a spiritual guide on one hand, a geopolitical force on the other. Its influence was never measured in armies or land, but in words, letters, decrees, and doctrines that could shift the destiny of nations. Faith as diplomacy. Long before the United Nations, the Vatican practiced global diplomacy. Popes sent envoys to emperors, kings, and sultans. Their messages, sealed with wax and divine authority, could bless wars or forbid them. Monarchs feared excommunication as much as invasion. The archives preserve centuries of these exchanges, evidence of how faith could function as both conscience and weapon. During the Middle Ages, papal bulls drew borders and crowned rulers. In the Renaissance, popes commissioned art that declared Rome's eternal supremacy. And in modern times, the Holy See became a bridge, mediating peace talks, influencing humanitarian law, and navigating world wars without firing a single bullet. The Vatican's strength was subtle. It could sway millions with silence alone. Knowledge as power. Information has always been currency. The Church understood that long before the modern world coined the phrase. Every document collected, every letter preserved, became a record of relationships and therefore leverage. The Vatican's ability to recall treaties, promises, or secrets from centuries past gave it a memory no empire could match. Its archives became less a library and more a living history of influence. Even in the digital era, world leaders still meet behind closed doors with the Pope. Whether Catholic or not, they recognize the symbolic weight of an institution that has survived every empire since Rome itself. Faith is power when it commands conscience. History is power when it cannot be erased. The Vatican holds both, balancing the sacred and the secular. Yet that dual role comes with tension. When moral authority meets political necessity, compromise follows. Critics argue that secrecy allows diplomacy to hide in shadows. Defenders reply that silence preserves peace. Between them lies a truth as complex as the Church itself. That influence is not only about belief, but about understanding the hearts of those who believe. The Vatican endures because it adapts. Through Reformation, revolution, and globalization, it has maintained relevance not by resisting change, but by interpreting it through the lens of eternity. In a world driven by short attention spans and endless data, the Church's greatest advantage may be patience. In Part 5 on the future of faith and disclosure, we look to the horizon, at a world where secrets fade beneath screens, where information is instant, and where even the oldest fortress of silence must decide what to reveal and what to keep sacred. Part 5. The future of faith and disclosure. In an age when nothing stays hidden for long, the Vatican stands as a paradox. Beneath ancient marble and centuries of ceremony, it remains one of the most enduring custodians of privacy on earth. And yet, the digital world is slowly reshaping even this fortress of silence. The age of revelation, the 21st century, is built on transparency. Satellites peer through clouds, archives go online, and truth, once protected by time and distance, travels at the speed of light. The Vatican, too, has begun to open its vaults. In recent years, documents from the World War II era and beyond have been made available to scholars. Digitization projects continue quietly, page by page, as a new generation seeks to connect faith's ancient memory with modern understanding. But with each new revelation comes a deeper question: how much knowledge should be shared and how much must remain sacred? Every institution faces the tension between privacy and accountability. For one built on mystery, that struggle is existential. To reveal everything would dissolve the myth. To reveal nothing would betray the mission of truth. Faith in the information age in a world of endless data, people still crave meaning. The Vatican's strength has always been its ability to interpret, not just inform, to give context where facts alone cannot. Yet technology challenges that authority. Algorithms can quote scripture, AI can translate ancient Latin, and digital archives can make once restricted texts accessible to anyone with a connection. The gatekeeper of knowledge is no longer the library, but the cloud. Still, there is something about the physical. The smell of parchment, the weight of a seal, the silence of a room built for reflection, that digital screens can't replicate. Perhaps that is why the Vatican continues to matter, because it reminds the world that wisdom is more than information. The eternal custodian as humanity rushes toward a future of total exposure. The Vatican stands as a counterpoint, a reminder that not all knowledge must be consumed to be valuable. The act of guarding can itself be sacred. The world may never know every page stored beneath Rome, but maybe that mystery is the point. In every age, we need a space where wonder survives. The Vatican's legacy is not secrecy, it's stewardship. What began as a tomb became a city, and what began as a library became a mirror of civilization. Faith built its walls. Curiosity will keep them standing. And perhaps when the last lock finally turns and the last vault opens, what humanity will find inside will not be proof or scandal, but a reflection of its own desire to seek, to question, and to believe. Subscribe to LTL Productions, where the mysteries of history meet the truth behind time.